grandmother's mirror showed me how I would die, and now I understand why she covered every reflective surface in her house before she passed away. I inherited the mirror 3 weeks after her funeral. It arrived in a wooden crate, wrapped in black velvet cloth that felt uncomfortably warm to the touch, with a note in my grandmother's shaking handwriting: "Emma, destroy this before you look. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough. Don't make my mistake." The note was dated 2 days before her death. I should have listened. God, I should have burned it right there in my driveway. But the mirror was beautiful. An antique piece with an ornate silver frame, intricate roses carved into the metal, the kind of thing worth thousands at auction. My apartment was small, my savings account smaller, and I just lost my job at the marketing firm. The rational part of my brain whispered that I could sell it, pay rent for 3 months, buy time to find new work. So I unwrapped it. The first time I looked into it, I saw myself. Just myself. Tired eyes, unwashed hair pulled into a messy bun, the same face I'd seen every morning for 28 years. I laughed at my grandmother's warning, felt a pang of guilt for dismissing her final words as the paranoid rambling of dementia. She'd been strange those last few years, talking about things that watched from corners, about time moving wrong, about debts that had to be paid. I'd attributed it all to her declining mind. I hung a mirror in my bedroom, opposite my bed. That night, I dreamed of my grandmother as a young woman, standing in an antique shop I'd never seen, reaching for the mirror with trembling hands while an old man with no eyes smiled and said, "It shows you the truth, dearie. But truth has a price." I woke at 3 a.m., my room flooded with moonlight, and the mirror's surface was rippling like water. I told myself it was the dream, the grief, the stress. I rolled over and forced my eyes shut. The second time I really looked was 3 days later, while getting ready for a job interview. I was adjusting my blazer, checking my appearance, when my reflection smiled at me. Not the nervous half-smile I was making. A real smile, wide and knowing, while my actual face remained neutral. My heart stopped. I stumbled backward, knocking over my jewelry box, and when I looked again, everything was normal. My reflection matched my movements perfectly. I was losing my mind. That was the only explanation. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the mirror from my bed, watching the moonlight play across its surface. At 3:07 a.m., something moved in the reflection. Not me. Not anything in my room. A shadow, tall and thin, standing behind where I lay in bed. I could see it in the mirror, but when I spun around, my bedroom was empty. The shadow in the mirror tilted its head, and I felt something cold brush against the back of my neck. I spent the next day researching my grandmother's life, digging through old photos and documents she'd left me. I found a diary from 1952, the year she turned 19. The entries started normal: dances, dates, dreams of becoming a teacher. Then, in March, the tone changed. "I bought the mirror today. The shopkeeper said it shows what's real, not what we pretend to see." I thought he meant it would help me see my true beauty. I was so stupid. So vain. The next entry was dated a week later. I saw myself at 40. I was sick, hollowed out, dying alone. It can't be real. It's just a horrible mirror. But it felt true. It felt like memory, not prediction. Then, dated a month after, it's not just the future. It's everything. Every choice, every path, every ending. I saw myself at 60, happy with children and grandchildren. I saw myself at 30, buried in an unmarked grave. I saw myself yesterday, and I was different, making different choices. The mirror doesn't show one future. It shows all of them. And something is watching through it, watching me watch myself, and it's hungry. The entries became erratic after that, barely legible, until they stopped entirely in June. I found no more diaries until 1965, and those were mundane, carefully normal, as if she was writing for an audience that might judge her sanity. I should have destroyed the mirror then, but I needed to understand. That night, I sat in front of it deliberately, staring into my own eyes, and I whispered, "Show me." The reflection changed. I saw myself, but older, maybe 50, with gray streaking my hair. I was in a hospital bed, holding someone's hand, smiling despite the weakness in my face. Then the image shifted. I saw myself at 30, standing on a bridge at night, looking down at dark water. Another shift. I saw myself yesterday, but I was wearing different clothes, saying different words to my former boss, keeping my job. Shift. I was 60, surrounded by people I didn't recognize, celebrating something. Shift. I was 40, alone in this same apartment, the mirror still on my wall, my face gaunt and terrified. The images came faster, a kaleidoscope of MS, all real, all possible, all somehow true. I saw myself die a dozen different ways: old age, accident, illness, choice. I saw myself live 100 different lives, and in every single one, no matter how long I lived or how I died, the mirror was there, watching, feeding. That's when I understood. The mirror didn't show the future. It showed possibilities, potential paths, and by showing them, it consumed them. Every version of myself I saw in that glass was a life I could no longer live, a future that became impossible the moment I observed it. The mirror was eating my potential, narrowing my existence, forcing me down a smaller and smaller corridor of fate. And the thing watching from behind the glass wasn't showing me these visions out of kindness. It was feeding on them, on the weight of unlived lives, on the grief of roads not taken. I saw my grandmother in the mirror then, not as a reflection but as a presence. She stood behind me, her young face aged with knowledge, and she was crying. I watched for 50 years, her voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. I saw every version of myself until only one remained. The version that watches. The version that waits to die. I couldn't stop looking, Emma. I couldn't stop trying to choose the right path. But every time I looked, I lost another choice. By the end, there was only one future left. The one where I die having looked too long. I tried to stand, to run, but my reflection grabbed my wrist. I felt cold fingers on my skin, impossible, horrible. My reflection's face wasn't mine anymore. It was changing, shifting through all the MS I'd seen, all the lives I'd lost, aging and younging and dying and living all at once. "You looked," it said with my voice, with 1,000 variations of my voice. "Now you have to keep looking. That's the price. That's always been the price." I don't know how I broke free. I remember screaming, falling backward, my lamp shattering against the floor. When I could breathe again, when I could think again, I grabbed the mirror and ran. I didn't stop running until I reached the lake outside town, the one my grandmother used to take me to as a child. The sun was rising, painting the water gold and pink, beautiful and normal and real. I threw the mirror as hard as I could. It spun through the air, catching the light, and shattered against the rocks at the water's edge. I expected something dramatic, an explosion of darkness, screams, the thing behind the glass emerging. But there was nothing. Just broken glass and twisted silver, sinking into the shallow water. I should have felt relief. I should have felt free. But as I walked back to my car, I caught my reflection in the car window, and for just a moment, my reflection didn't move with me. It stayed still, watching me leave, and it was smiling. Not with joy, with patience. That was 3 months ago. I got a new job, started dating someone kind, began putting my life back together. I avoid mirrors now, avoid anything reflective. I know what my grandmother knew in the end. The mirror didn't trap us because we looked. It trapped us because we couldn't stop looking, couldn't stop wanting to know, to choose, to control our fates. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I really destroyed it. Sometimes I wake at 3 a.m. and feel something watching from the darkness of my room. Sometimes I catch movement in the corner of my eye, in windows and screens and still water. And sometimes, when I'm tired and not paying attention, I see myself in a reflection and I'm older, or younger, or wearing clothes I've never owned, living a life I'll never live. The mirror showed me one last thing before I threw it into the lake. One final vision. I was old, maybe 80, sitting in a room full of covered mirrors, just like my grandmother's house. I was writing a note in shaking handwriting, and the note said, "Destroy this before you look. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough. Don't make my mistake. I think I understand now. The mirror doesn't need to exist to feed. Once you've looked, really looked, you carry it with you. Every reflection becomes a potential trap. Every choice becomes a burden of paths not taken. You start covering mirrors not because you're afraid of what's watching, but because you're afraid of what you're becoming. Someone who watches their own life from the outside, seeing all the versions that could have been, until you're not sure which version is real anymore. My grandmother couldn't destroy it because she'd already looked too long. And I'm starting to worry that I have too. Because even now, even knowing what I know, I still wonder about those other Emmas. The ones who made different choices. The ones who looked longer. The ones who are still looking. And in the quiet moments, in the spaces between heartbeats, I can feel them looking back.